impromptu.
I guess just to open it off with recruiting, how are things sitting in the 23 class, 24 class? How are you guys feeling about some of the situation with some of you guys?
Yeah, good. I mean, there's a lot of change right now, and there's a lot going on. So we're still on a daily basis, hourly, things are changing, and so we're just working through all of those things. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to relationships, and it still comes down to putting a plan together for each of their recruits and their families. So when they get here, the focus is on development in all areas. So, but there's certainly a lot more dynamics at play than there were last year.
Yeah, with your, I mean, you have CJ, Kyle, Devin, like 3, 4, 5-star, whatever. How has that changed your philosophy? I know you like to bring in one of those, I guess, top tier guys every year. Is that changing your philosophy because of how stacked the quarterback room is?
We try to go recruit the best players in the country every year, and the goal is that if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So the guys who are highly competitive, jump and move 2 feet.
Right. Can you touch on that changes you're talking about? I mean, is it? We're not out there recruiting, so I'm not. But is it Wild Wild West like we're talking? Like it's been portrayed, and what do you see coming down the road that's going to change in your head?
Well, I think there's risk everywhere. There's risk if you do nothing.
Yeah.
You get left behind. If you go the other end, then there's risk that you can get fired for cause for crossing the line. So finding that sweet spot is where the challenge is right now. And when there aren't clear-cut rules or rules that are being enforced, then it creates hard feelings and unrest. And I think that's where we are right now.
Are you feeling, opportunity? I know you're not allowed to give inducements, NIL inducements, but it's happening. How hard is it to compete with that and deal with that landscape right now?
Well, yeah, it's a challenge because there are rules in place that right now are not being enforced. So it does create hard feelings. And so, again, that's kind of where we are right now, is finding our way in that in those battles.
Do you want there to be more rules and more enforcement?
Well, I think we all do much better when it's black and white, and it's gray. And so I think the easy thing to do is throw up your hands and complain, but we're going to adapt and figure out a way to make it work for Ohio State.
Tony Alford said that you might have something to announce on Marcus Crowley. Kind of what's his status right now?
Yeah, so Marcus, we met with his family last night. We're going to be doing a medical red shirt for Marcus. He has a long-term injury there. He really wants to finish his degree and still be a part of the program, which he will. But he suffered a significant injury, and so he's got a medical red shirt.
So will he not be returning to the field?
Right.
Medical retirement.
That's right. Yep.
And Mitchell Melton, Jim Knowles said that it's probably going to be tough for him to come back. Just kind of what do you see as your prognosis there?
For who? For
Mitchell Melton.
Yeah, that'll be another long term. It was an ACL, and we don't get into too many of those things. But when it's a long term injury like that, so he'll be on the road to recovery. And you saw him earlier today with his family. And it's hard when you embrace these injuries because it's going to be a long road back. And that's why it was so important to have Adam Stewart still be a part of the program, because he's a big part of their lives and their recovery and their rehab, and he's the best in the business. So the good news is we have great resources and these guys are in good hands. The negative is it's a long road back to recovery. So,
Ryan, when you looked back at the spring game, watched the film, what are things maybe on each side of the ball that really stood out to you that maybe you didn't notice when we talked to you after?
There's not one thing more than another. I mean, I think that we've got to get the depth going in the second offensive line for sure. We're down some guys because of injury, but other than that, I mean, we just wanted to get guys out there and try to keep everybody as healthy as we possibly could. We took one injury, but that was just we tried to keep it pretty vanilla there and just have some fun with the guys and go play. But it was good to tackle. It was good to see guys, take guys to the ground, and that was good. We'll do some more of that in the preseason.
Ryan, we talked with Brian Hartline about Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson going back-to-back in the draft. And we talked about the joy he had getting to develop them, see them on draft night. What was your perspective of seeing Brian Hartline and his feelings for Chris and Garrett getting drafted?
Well, it's emotional, and when you go through the recruiting process with a family, you sit down and you talk to them about the dream of moving on to the NFL. Certainly, you have to start off with doing well at Ohio State, but that obviously happened, and I think it was great in the green room, their coaches were back to back. So it was really neat to see all the families and see certainly Chris and Garrett there. But then to watch them go back to back like that was great. A lot of emotion and a lot of emotion for the family. But it's just great to be a part of it. Certainly that's a moment for us to step back, but also make sure that we're there and supportive of them as they take the next step in their journey.
How did you
Couple
feel
more questions,
for
guys.
Brian Hartline to see 2 receivers going first round after the wide receiver history in the NFL draft here? To see that for Brian Hartline, this is what we're feeling today.
Well, it's exciting. Like I said, it's a very, very exciting time to be a quarterback and a wide receiver. And I think, Dwayne really kind of broke the mold and became the first rounder at quarterback in a long time here. And then now you're starting to see then Justin, and now you're starting to see some of the wide receivers, certainly what Terry's doing and Michael Thomas is doing and Paris and some of our guys that are having success in the NFL. You're seeing that carry over, and you're seeing some of the recruiting start to reflect that as well. And now you're seeing a couple guys go in the first round, so it's starting to pick up a lot of momentum. So it's very exciting recruiting to be in that area.
I was about to ask, Jimmy, could you have had a better recruiting pitch than both of them going back to back on that Thursday?
I think it's testimony.
Yeah.
We've talked about this for a long time in recruiting, and now you're seeing it actually happen. So I think the recruits, that's a really important part of recruiting is the development. Certainly all the NIL and all the things that are going on right now are part of it, but what really matters is their development in the end. And for the guys who are focused on that and want to develop into becoming really good college players and possibly being NFL draft picks, then Ohio State's a great option.
Ryan, you had a couple weeks off, and kind of not really underlying, but since spring practice, step back a little bit. What do you need to see this summer to make you feel like you guys are ready for fall camp?
I just think it's going to be fundamentals in all areas. I think we just got to continue to grow with leadership, and we now have spring cut-ups on defense to watch, where guys can watch themselves and watch their fundamentals, but also watch the scheme and watch the cut-ups and teach tapes and build off of that. It's the same thing on offense. We now have that stuff that they can watch themselves from the spring. Good thing on offense is we have the spring and we have the fall to really go off of. So we got the work to do in the weight room, but we also have to do the work in terms of coming from the spring, watching the cut-ups and getting better at the things we need to improve on. Each player has been told the things that they need to improve on and the things they did well coming out of the spring individually.
To have the cutoff of the transfer portal on May 2nd, how much does that, what good can that do for coaches to know exactly who's going to be on the roster next fall at the end of May instead of having it completely open?
Yeah, I think it was a good thing that happened with the cutoff because it really cuts down the noise. I think that for a lot of these players right now, whether it's family or agents or just people in general, there's a lot of noise out there. And so this kind of quiets down that noise and allows them to focus on what's important right now.
I think the numbers are, if you look.
Last 2 questions here, Doug, and then
I think it's like 16 or 17 guys who transferred out of Ohio State, and I think 3 in. And almost everybody who left are guys who were down the depth chart, going somewhere where they could play. Just like those raw numbers.
Yeah.
Is that a okay balance for you? Do you think like the intention of the one-time transfer is working?
I think it's a little bit of the combination of COVID and that extra year being mixed in. But our goal is always to recruit high school players and develop them while they're here. And if it works, then they get on the field. If it doesn't, then not that I like it, but there's an opportunity for some people to find other places to play. And so what we've done is we've just done a really good job of identifying the high school kids that we want to recruit and develop them. We really haven't spent a lot of time focusing on the transfer portal, because I think if you want to sustain the program for a long period of time, I think recruits and their families, when you recruit them and talk to them about the plan for them to develop in your program, they want to see that happen, and they really don't want to see a transfer come in and jump somebody in line. And so when there is a hole, we've done it before. We've had Travion, we've had Trey Sermon, we've had Justin, we've had Jonah Jackson, we had Noah Ruggles. So we've had our fair share of transfers, but it's not something we want to rely on.
And is your almost like official program position that maybe you would not take a transfer who might be a very good player if it feels like he would jump the line of a player who is developing on track in your program where there's not a hole in that position? Would you almost feel like that's sort of unfair or something, that you would not target a transfer like that?
Well, I think you're being a little bit disingenuous if on the front end you're talking to your families and your recruits about the opportunity to play at Ohio State, and then just to go try to get the best player out in front of him. That could create some hard feelings. Now, if it's appropriate, we'll do that. We didn't see that happen in this turn or this recruiting cycle. But we have somebody that we've hired just to identify guys who are in the portal. Ryan Kavanaugh does an unbelievable job. He spent over a decade in the NFL of identifying players. He evaluates our team and he evaluates all the transfer guys in the portal. And if it fits right, then we'll do it. But we are making sure that we're taking care of the guys on our team first.
And last question.
Do you have room to add anybody, or do you expect your roster pretty much set?
Right now we're at 85.
Do you expect Noah Ruggles back?
Yes.
Is he back?
Yeah.
Did he take like basically a hiatus this past semester? I mean, how would you explain it?
Yeah. He needed a little time away, and so but he's back.
How many kickers do you have, Coach?
I've lost count.